Okay, so in this video I'd like to talk about the cart functionality and also the printing. Let me just remind you of how this behaves. I've run the program here, and hopefully it won't take too long. Okay, so here we have the program running, and I'm just going to throw a few things into the cart. And recall in the last video I showed you that the cart behind the scenes is a list. It's a typed list, a list of type item. And here at the front end, this is going to be like kind of a visual representation of the user's cart, and it's a list box, which you know from C# 1. So I'm going to throw a few things into the cart. So if I want to buy this, a couple of things are happening behind the scenes. We're adding that object, these copper shakers, to the user's cart behind the scenes, which is the typed list. Also, at the front end here, I'm adding this string of text here to the list box, so the user has a visual representation of what he or she is buying. So I'll just throw a few more things into the cart. And if I want to, and we have the running total going. We did something like that in C# 1, so I don't think I'm going to dwell on that in this video. I do want to talk about the removal. So for example, if I want to remove this cake tin, this is from, I know I'm removing it from the list box, but also behind the scenes we're removing it from the user's cart. And that's very easy to do with a list, unlike arrays. So I'm going to remove that. The total is adjusted. And then we have the checkout, which I also want to talk about in this video. This is the print document. And I talked about the possible grid format, and we can use a list of type point to make that happen. So that's a technique that you're welcome to try. You're not required, though. Okay, so let me get to the code here, and maybe at the front end. I'm going to get into the buy button. And what we have, recall that the cart is a list of type item. And we already looked at the add method with the inventory list and how you can easily just throw an item into a list. And that's what I'm doing here. Whatever item they're currently looking at is going to be added to that cart. And there it is. And then also, so the user has a visual representation of that, I'm going to add this string, the item name concatenated with a dash and the price, to the list box, so the user can see what he or she is going to buy. And so this line here that I've highlighted, you did something like that in C# 1 probably several times. So here, increasing the subtotal, which I said I wasn't really going to talk about, but we're just keeping track of the total in a label. Okay, so there's the adding. Let's look at the remove button here. I've sandwiched this in an if statement. In order to remove an item from the list, you have to select the item first and remove selected. If you were to try to click this button without selecting an item first, it would throw an exception, basically. So to prevent that, I have put this in an if statement, and I'm saying if selected index, we looked at that property, that's a list box property that contains the index of the selected item, the highlighted item. If the selected index is not equal to -1, then we're going to try to remove the thing from the cart. Now, why -1 here? If you do not have an item selected in a list box, the selected index property has a negative, it contains a -1. So I'm saying if it's not -1, there must be something selected, and therefore it's a go. Let's do it. Let's remove this thing. Or else, then nothing is selected, and I'm going to ask the user to select an item to remove. So anyway, assuming that they have selected an item, I'm decreasing the subtotal first thing before I do anything else, and then I'm going to remove the item from the cart. Again, this is the list behind the scenes that the user doesn't see. There's no visual component. It's the list of type item. And we have this remove at method. And you can provide the index. Well, I'm not going to hard code an index. I don't know what the user has selected to remove, but I do know that whatever they selected to remove is in that selected index property. So if they wanted to remove the first item, that would have an index of 0, selected index would have 0. If it were the third item, it would be, selected index would have 2. So whatever item they selected is in that property, and fine, we'll just remove it from the cart behind the scenes. And then I will also remove it from the list box down here, actually, with the remove at property, or method, I should say. So that's that. And then looking at the print page, this is basically, I don't want to get too long-winded here, but we've done this type of thing, obviously, a few times in C#1, but here I'm throwing in a new technique if you're interested. It's not super important, but here we have a list of type point, okay? A point is just what it is in a math class, or a geometry class. It's a point, a dot with X and Y coordinates. And so that's convenient for us because we work with X and Y coordinates in our print page to keep track of where the print cursor is. So I have a list of type point, which I've called print points. And then I'm just kind of mapping out the points with X and Y coordinates. And I just did, I kind of tested out these numbers and kind of mapped them out in my mind and in coordination with the picture sizes to get this grid layout. And so, for example, this is a point I'm creating with an X value of 50 and a Y value of 150, and so on. So these are just a bunch of points. We have 9 points total, so we could get 9 pictures in the grid on one document. And then that's it. So when we use a list of type point to keep track of these points, then we can pretty much loop through that list and just draw the bitmaps one at a time, using their points, using their location in the print points list, and that's basically it. So you're welcome to try something like that, or you can go with the traditional thing like we would have done in C#1, where you have all the pictures kind of lined up on the left, smaller instead of a grid. So it's up to you and your comfort level, but I'll just put that out there for you to try. And then we have the summary data, like the customer subtotal. This we would have done in C#1 as well, so I won't dwell on that. Then not sure why I have 2 of these here, but probably one of them is became disconnected from the event or something. So that's that. Okay.